So it's an early morning start for this preview, West London VR race preview from Poland with Love. The memorial in front of you is the Polish War Memorial. You can't quite see the Polish flag because it's drooping due to the fact there's no wind, which is great for cycling. There's the flag just blown a little bit there, Polish flag. That's a memorial to all the Polish Air Force personnel that died during the Second World War. The reason it's here is, you can't quite see it at the moment, but basically to our left, and we'll get a better view on the return journey, is Northolt Airport, which is an Air Force base, and the Polish squadrons flew from there during the Second World War. Today it's still an air base, but you won't see many warplanes in there. It's mainly used for private jets and dignitaries. So most of the UK's politicians fly in and out of there on their various diplomatic missions around Europe, I guess, mainly. I don't think you can take the really big jets for trips to the USA, but I could be wrong. So anyway, it's a fairly flat course, so there's not going to be too much to point out along the way. If anything, this is a very, very gentle incline, but you can't tell, and it feels like a flat road up until the traffic lights. I suppose there's a little bit of a rise just after the traffic lights where we go past the end of the runway, which we'll see in a moment. As I say, there's not a lot to really point out in terms of strategic points for the VR race, and so therefore this is just a little picturesque tour of essentially Ruislip and Ickenham first thing in the morning. This is a weekday morning, so this is a bit busier than it might have been had I filmed it during the weekend. There's the first entrance to the airport, and that's obviously not an airport, that's a petrol station. This here is the end of the runway. Quite often you see lots and lots of photographers along here, the paparazzi, by those that green fence there. And the reason is, and they've all got very sort of telescopic lenses, because the private jets flying here, quite a few celebrities and, as I say, politicians and people like that do use that airport, and with the telescopic lens you are able to get photographs of people getting on and off the planes, I suppose, on the runway, tarmac, whatever you want to call it. So as I say, it's a bit early in the morning, and obviously no dignitaries flying in at that moment, so no paparazzi. This is the next entrance to the airport. This is the main one used to be on the A40, but I think because that's got so busy these days, you go in here now. And this one, I think, has, I can't remember which way around it is, this one has a Hurricane from World War II in it, I think. And when we go along the A40 towards the end of this race, you'll see the Spitfire, which they have where the old entrance used to be. Now it might be the other way around, it might be a Spitfire and a Hurricane. They were the two main fighter planes used during the Battle of Britain. So this was a key airport during the Battle of Britain, and just a couple of miles away in Uxbridge it was all coordinated from a bunker. So summer of 1940 is its claim to fame. So we're past the airport now. This is the first tube station we're going to pass. This is Ruislip Gardens Underground Station. You see the line going above you there. Still, as I say, there's a little bit of a rise just where the runway was. This is very, very gently rising. It's one of those things that you feel like it's a very flat road when you're riding in this direction, and you might be doing one speed and you realise that it is a slight gentle slope. If you come the other way, where you manage to do wonderful speeds from further up down to this section, and of course it is because it's very, very gently downhill, and as I say, it doesn't look it, but it is. Other than that, I don't think it really constitutes an attack point. The little rise that we've just done by the airport, maybe, there's one in Ruislip High Street, maybe, and there's one out in Ickenham that maybe, but I think you are going to have to attack on the split second to drop anybody, and if you're in a strong peloton, I think the peloton will pull you back anyway, so not too much of any note that's going to win you the race. This is a fairly straight trajectory. We're heading sort of kind of in a northwesterly direction, called West End Road, nowhere near London's West End, I hasten to add. and what we're going to do is then sort of head westwards before we sort of curl round the edge past the new works for the high speed 2 rail link at Ickenham, and then back through Ickenham and along the A40 cycle path, which will, I suppose, basically go along the old frontage of the airport and brings us back to where we started. So it's a loop. You only have to do it one time. It's just over 15 kilometres long. It's slightly below our average or our target of 16k, but I suppose if you can do a loop, you can't really sort of just add a bit on the end that easily, or at least I couldn't see an obvious way to add a kilometre in this case. You can see here that the gentle rise I was on about actually does show up a little bit here. As I say, you can see that the road is slightly rising here, but again, it's not on an RGT race, a Wahoo RGT race, not going to be of any note, and I don't think you can treat this as an attack point. There's a little bit of a bridge coming up as we go over past the next tube station, underground. Tube is London Underground, if you're not familiar with the term. These lines out here are obviously above ground, and the word tube comes from the deep tunnel sections where they were little round tunnels like a tube. So here we go. This is a rise. This is a railway bridge. As I say, this goes over Metropolitan and Piccadilly lines, and you'll see a little sign just before the building on the right showing the tube sign, the London Underground sign. You just go down the steps, and Ruislip station is there as we head into Ruislip. So we've basically been through South Ruislip, and now we're into Ruislip, and that's the steps just there on the right down to the station. Now some traffic lights here, which we inevitably got a red light at, so we have to edit out. This takes us into Ruislip High Street. Now this is the second of the little rises that I said, you know, could stand out. I mean, it's not, you'll see, it's not a huge hill or anything like that, but there is a gentle rise just after the railway bridge. There's a bump over the railway bridge and then this rise. It's not long enough and steep enough, I think, to be an absolute split, but then again, you know, larger pelotons might break into two if enough power's put on the front. I think a solo break here will just get dragged back by the peloton on the next section. So you know, worth being aware it's here. There is, I suppose there's another one just after Ruislip High Street as we drop down to the River Pin and back up again. So there's probably two undulating lumps here which might break pelotons, but I don't think will be enough for anybody to get away in solo or in a very small group. So it sort of crests about there as we go past Ruislip's Specialised shop on the right, the big black frontage. There's a Specialised shop, rather nice in there as well, and they do bike fitting as well, which I hadn't realised, and apparently they've been doing it for years. Just asked the guy now, so what's through that room? And he said, oh, that's where we do the bike fitting. And anyway, since then several people have said that they're very, very good in there as well, so they come recommended. I haven't done it myself. A little bit of traffic at the roundabout at the end of Ruislip High Street, and it won't take long. This is only, as I say, this little roundabout here by St Martin's Church, and then we'll be out of it. We're going where the bus is going. The other guy's going the other way. So here we go, out onto the open road again. And as I say, there is a little bit of a dip here as we drop down to the River Pin, and then there's a little bit of a sort of ramp upwards. Again, you know, possibly an attack place, but I don't think it's significant enough for a solo breakaway, or it could leave a few people off the back of a peloton, but that's about all it's going to do. Still dropping down here towards the little bridge which goes over the River Pin, which we're about to cross any moment now. Here we are. So that's the bridge there where the white walls are, so that's over the river, and as I say, a little bit of a rise as we come out of the well, it's only a small river valley. We're actually at the top of the Thames Valley, so this is not a significant river, it's just a shallow valley, but you can see it does rise here. So that's your third opportunity, one by the airport, one on Ruislip High Street, and one just coming out of the River Pin. We're not going to see another one till we get to Ickenham, and that's really about it for the race. So in the early stages, I think it's going to be not one of those things where you can nutritionally break away with sort of, a couple of kilometres to go. I think they're a bit too early in the race. They're not steep enough. But you never know. You never know. You can certainly, some of the slower riders will probably find themselves off the back of a peloton fairly early in the race, but we don't mind that because we know that you all group up and have your own little races at the back, which we absolutely love and encourage. And this is why we don't grade the races. We allow everybody to enter, and it's quite amazing how many people towards the back of the group still love the races because they have their own little personal jewels at the back in their own little bunches. And I would suggest it's natural selection, because you find yourself in a bunch of similar riders, whereas with all the grading online, some of the races, we all know that some riders have entered races above the category, well, in a category below where they really are. So as I say, we prefer to go for the natural selection. You won't win the race, but you can win your own little peloton, and we love the mass participation. It's wonderful, great community. So now, having come out of that little rise, there is a little drop down to a roundabout, and it regains the altitude a little bit, but it's there's no what I would describe as a climb out of this dip. So don't get too excited about this bit, even though it does gently regain the altitude as we go along the next road. We're going to go right here by the BP garage, and as I say, there is probably a gentle rise in there, but I would regard it personally as a flat road rather than a climb, because the gradient is just so shallow. Nothing to note at all. Now we're coming out into the more countrified areas as we go past Ruislip Crematorium and the car hire place, the van hire place, which I think I know they must do vans that take bikes, because I've seen some people with trips to France using that van hires vans. So worth noting, I think that they have been used for bike carriage. Whether or not they have facilities inside the vans or not, I don't know. I'm going to ask them though for a future trip. So this road, as I say, you can see it's gently rising, but I don't think we'll class that as a climb at all. And there's small undulations along the way, so it's not entirely flat, but it's not enough to warrant any sort of noted points of attack and things like that. You can see it gently rising here, but just not significant enough. We're going to turn left at the end of this road and go down the pub, which does turn left at a pub and go down a road that does virtually the same. It's a very small undulations, but it won't. The draft effect of the peloton and the speed it's going at, the momentum, they'll just fly by without you noticing. So nothing to note. As I said, I would regard this as a flat course, and we should expect a sprint finish, I would imagine, in this race. It has been run before, but not for a long time. It's one of the early races in the life of West London VR racing, so it's been a long time since it was used before. So I can't comment at the time of doing this, but this is the second video I've made for this particular race, and I think this will remain the generic one. But as I say, it was a long time back when we first rode this, from the time to recording this preview now. So just coming up to that pub that I mentioned earlier, where we're going to turn left. Again, it's going to be undulating, and again, you see it's a very, very small, gentle climb here, but it'll be unnoticeable. You see the long shadows. This is because it's quite early in the morning when I did this, before the traffic of everybody going to work, as we turn left by the pub. So the traffic of people going to work, there's a few lorries out, obviously. We've seen a few of those, and we'll see a few more, I suspect, on the road. Beautiful sunny morning, causing those long shadows, of course, as we go into the more countrified areas. This won't last for too long, and we're not far from built up areas. They are to our left. It's going to seem slightly more countrified than we have had so far as we go along. As you see, every time you turn left, there's just buildings. So You can see sort of a slight drop here from one of the undulations I'm talking about. Nicely tarmacked. I think what I will say, from the last time I filmed this as a preview, this was quite bumpy, worn tarmac, and beautifully smooth now. And I just wonder if that was to help all the lorries that are going to be delivering stuff to the works that we're about to stop at. You saw the little temporary traffic light sign there, and a few more just warning us that we're coming up to the works. This is the London to Birmingham high-speed rail link being built, and this is the works. Now, you can probably see just ahead, maybe not that clearly at the moment, but there is a railway running along here already. There's a little bridge in front of us. You can just see in the centre of your screen the yellow. If you see where the yellow sign is, just to the right of that, you see the yellow in the distance. That is the railway bridge, and we're about to go under it after editing out the way the traffic lights. So there's already a railway line running along here, so you wonder why they're building a second one. Well, it's supposed to be a high-speed link, and it's actually being tunnelled under here. So despite the fact there's already a railway, just to ensure that we don't spoil the landscape of the railway going along here, it's going underground. That's probably a little bit unfair of me to suggest that, because the reason it's going underground is, as I said, there are lots of buildings on the right, so it's really designed to be going underneath the buildings and the housing estates on our left. So it's a little bit of sarcastic comment there, me suggesting that building a tunnel where there's already a railway line to not spoil the countryside is a bit unfair. In fact, actually, the local triathletes are rather upset because, despite it being in a tunnel, for some reason the lake that they use for the swimming in their triathlons, which was just in that vicinity, has been shut down and is not going to be reopened afterwards. So I'm not sure if the lake was artificial and taken out because it might, I don't know, feed too much water into the tunnels. Who knows? But it's disappeared. I think there was quite a bit of protest about it, but like everything else, it eventually went away. In fact, there were quite a few protesters about the building of this railway at one point, but they all seem to have disappeared these days. Now, the last of the attack points, if there is one, is going to come up shortly at the end of this road, and it's a very short, steep ramp, and I don't know what it'll feel like on your RGT race in amongst a load of other people. I know if you're riding this road naturally, you do sort of notice this sudden ramp up to the roundabout and then drop down again. It's not long, but it can take I think if you're in the wrong gear, it can just take a little bit out of your momentum as we come up to it now. You can see it's rising. It's not very long, it's just the last little bit of the roundabout is steep. The other thing is, we do actually smooth the courses for RGT, so the little sort of ramp at the end, you can see it just there. Just past the tree on your right, there's just this little bit of a ramp. It takes just here now, and if you're riding, it can sort of, as I say, if you're in the wrong gear, it can just slow you down momentarily. As I say, on a smooth circuit and so forth, I think you might not notice that, but that's probably the last. Well, in fact, I can tell you now, that is the last gradient of the race. So it's, I suppose, it's a gentle uphill to the finish, but that's so near the finish it won't really tell. I don't think it might affect very closely placed riders on the line, but that's your lot. There's a sweeping downhill. I used to love this on the way home. Well, I say used to. This is still quite nice. I love this road on the way home from rides out to the countryside. You can go very fast along here, and it's not too busy a road, and it's quite wide, so cars can get around you. And yeah, this is a nice sweeping sort of ride home as we go past another cyclist. And for all the speed we've got, we're all going to end up at a traffic light. Well, it's not traffic lights actually. It's a junction, but there's a set of traffic lights for a pedestrian crossing, and it does get a bit busy and held up as we head towards the shops in Ickenham. This is probably, although we're not going to go right past the tube station, the third underground station of 4 that we're going to pass. This is Ickenham station coming up. As I say, you won't see it because we're not quite going to go past it, but like everywhere else what happens is when they built the tube stations, you get a little sort of set of shops and everything as the community built around it. This is Ickenham, the Polish shops to the right, and the road on the right there is Bikewise, the bike shop in Ickenham, for anybody that uses it. And Mark is a great bike mechanic if you need your bike fixed. So all the shops are on the right on this occasion, and we're going to turn right along Long Lane and head down towards Hillingdon next. So Ruislip, Ickenham, Hillingdon is the route. It's named from Poland with Love. As I said, this is in tribute to the Polish personnel who fought in Britain during World War I, and particularly during the World War II, and particularly during the Battle of Britain. So here's the right turn into Long Lane. This is fast. It's got a cycle lane, so it's quite nice to cycle and wide enough for the cars to get around you. So popular little road as we go into the cycle lane. They bothered to paint the lines for us. We might as well use it. Not quite up to the sort of Dutch and Belgian standards of cycle lanes, of course, but we take what we get in London. So as I say, this is now going to be pretty flat all the way to the finish. There's a very, very small incline at the finish, but it's not going to notice because it's right on the line. And everybody will be now looking at what's happening at the front of the peloton. Will there be a few of the attacks on the front here just to see if they can shed a few people off the back of the peloton? Who knows? I'm still thinking this one will be a sprint finish by virtue of the overall flatness of the course. As you see, it's being flat. I think this will be quite a fast race as well, so we look for some good times on this one, although times don't particularly matter in the way we do these races. Catching up the bus advertising the New Elizabeth line, which is the London's first attempt many decades after Paris did it for well, I don't know what the kind of English word for it is, but it was Crossrail originally. It's RER in Paris, isn't it? The lines that go right through and come out the other side of Paris, and sort of a bit more expressive than the sort of metro. So anyway, this bus route, I hadn't realised, because I keep seeing buses with this logo on. I hadn't realised they'd set up buses to feed us all to the Elizabeth line, so this is a new bus route that takes us to get on it, which was a little bit surprising for me because we've got so many underground stations into London already ourselves, and in fact this bus is about to pull into one of those underground stations as we just rise gently up the bridge here. I suppose this might constitute an attack position. This just goes over the A40, the main road, and the Metropolitan line, Piccadilly line, and the bus, as I say, just about to pull into the station there for commuters. So I suspect what the bus actually does is link up a few commuter rail stations. So here we come down into Hillingdon Circus. Circus as in, I suspect it was once a roundabout, no longer is. And going to have to do a little bit of editing for the traffic lights here at Hillingdon Circus. There we go. Now on the race, I routed it so it actually goes over to where that shop is in front of you, and you'll just do a left, so that'll be a sort of kind of sharp turn left onto the cycle path. But I'm in this video taking a slightly easier real life route, which I've, as I say, not used in the course, and you'll see why in a moment, because there's a little bit of a twist back. This is an old disused road. The bridge just went over is the modern version of the A40. This is the old A40 now, sort of disused. Well, one half of it's disused and the other half isn't. So what I'm doing here is using the disused bit as a little bit of a kind of easier way to ride to get back on the cycle path here. So you won't do that little twist I've just done in the real race, so don't worry about that. That would probably slow everybody down with the Wahoo RGT braking effect that comes into play in those situations. So here we are, this is the last stretch of it. This is straight and flat all the way except for that little bump at the end coming up to the finishing line, which we'll see in a moment. This is a cycle path, and it runs along what was once the frontage of the Northolt Airport where we started, and we will finish again at the Polish War Memorial, although the other side of the main dual carriageway road, which we'll see in a moment. This is a nice little bit of stretch of road, and certainly I say if you want to let your legs loose and just warm up, it's nice to just ride down here and ride up and down this section of road, because you can go incredibly fast. And actually this direction is always slightly enigmatic, as the GoPro gets upset at me riding over the rumble strips. And correct that. Sorry about the sun. As I say, this was quite early in the morning, so the sun was rising, and there is a bit of sort of sunshine effect as we go along the A40. As you can see, very, very bright as we come out of the trees. Fortunately, the GoPro, which doesn't like the rumble strips, does manage to adapt to the light, I believe. So this is where we sort of kind of join the dual carriageway A40 road, and we're going to be riding alongside of it. The Northolt Airport is the other side of the road. You can see the street lights here very, very low, and the reason for that is we're at the end of the runway. Do you remember the point earlier where I pointed out the paparazzi? This is the other end of the runway where they take off, and the street lamps are low so that the planes don't hit the tops of the street lamps. Once we get past the end of the runway, they start getting a bit bigger again, and back to a more normal size. So as I say, this is quite fast and straight, and it is I'd say this is going to be a sprint to the finish. Everybody's sort of giving themselves up, getting themselves in position, sitting in, trying to work out when to unleash themselves. You know, those that know they need to go early, when do they go early? It's a couple of kilometres along this stretch, so you don't want to be going at this stage. You can see now the street lamp's getting taller because we passed the end of the runway. As I say, this is a great place to come out and let your legs loose. It's interesting going this direction because the prevailing wind is often behind you, but the effect of the traffic on that main road, which is not too busy right now, but there can be a lot more traffic on there than you're seeing now, and the effect of that traffic seems to sort of negate the advantage of the tailwind for some reason. It can be quite hard work riding along here in either direction, because you're either coming from the other direction and you're simply hitting the natural headwind, or if you're coming this way, the impact of the airflow of the traffic coming in the opposite direction seems to me to always undo the benefit of the tailwind. Why it doesn't seem to help you in the other direction, I don't know. I'm not a scientist. I'm a cyclist, but not a scientist. Nothing I mean, again, those little junctions have no effect on RGT. This will just be stock scenery, and all you'll see is a straight road ahead. But remember, this is absolutely straight now to the finish. Possibly a little bit of a kink at the end, but it's a little bit of a kink and maybe uphill, but you won't really notice. This is a fast, flat finish all the way down here on this cycle path, which is, I suppose, arguably more up to the sort of standards of the Netherlands and Belgium, isn't it? This is the sort of thing you take for granted in the Low Countries. So we wish you good luck on the day. I mean, there's not a lot I can add. This is attritional. It's going to be a fast, flat finish, as we've said before, and we suspect a sprint finish. Sprint finishes can throw up some interesting results because, you know, with a big bunch, the difference between first and 15th can be a split second, and the amount of points in the on offer for the general classification, it can make a big difference. So we like these little flat races because they can, you know, add a bit of edge to the series. So let's see what happens in this one. Getting very close to the finish, as I say, there is, I suppose, a little bit of a kink and a dent towards the end where this narrows just here on the cycle path. It drops a very, very small amount to give you that rise at the end that I previously mentioned, but it's not significant. I mean, the only reason that I would say I slow down here a little bit is because the cycle path gets narrower and you've got those overhanging trees, and with the sun in my eyes as well, you can't in fact, you've got a better view here than it felt at the time, but you see that suddenly that cyclist comes out of there that wasn't in view at all, so taking a little bit of care. This is, if there is a dip, it's here, and this is the rise off the road. The reason for the rise, of course, is that this is a roundabout on this exit to the dual carriageway, which is just slightly above the road. So it's just the like the motorway exit, really, that we're having that rise on just up to the finish. The finish at the top here on the roundabout. As I say, we wish you luck on the day. Can't wait to see how the race pans out. We're predicting a sprint finish and who will win. See you on the day.